My name is Jacob Stock, and I will be looking at the gender wage gap in the United States and in Belgium. My research question is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, men earn more money than women in nearly every profession due to the existence of an income gap. How does this compare to another Western country such as Belgium? I've chosen these two countries as they're part of my country study diary, and I have a lot of data regarding both of them, which should be useful for this proposal. Here's the importance. The gender wage gap is one of the leading topics not only in feminist economics, but economics as a whole. We hear conversations all the time or news articles about the 77 cent to a dollar women earn to men in the United States. But is this an anomaly? Is this only in the United States? Do we only see this there? We know that we don't due to data sets across the globe, but is it only the United States due to their specific reasons, such as education and a lack of quotas and a lack of female leadership? Going into that, the impact of gender quotas in government as a means for lessening the gender wage gap is intuitively correlated, but we might see that it is not. And that's one of the reasons for this proposal. My first reference, Gender and the Labor Market, Econometric Evidence of Obstacles to Achieving Gender Equality by Gustafson and Mulders. They have a collection of 14 papers focusing on the United States, as well as 13 other European countries, one of which is Belgium. They talk about the feminization of work in the United States, as well as working time, women, and low wages in Belgium. So this will be nice to look at cross-country comparisons, specifically between the two that I am looking at. The second reference is unequal pay or unequal unemployment, or unequal employment, a cross-country analysis of gender gaps by Olivetti and Petrangelo. They say that, or they talk about women who are employed have high wage characteristics and vice versa for those who are unemployed. So if these unemployed women were to become employed, would that only bring this gap, would this only heighten the gap between women and men, as the women who are employed are the high wage characteristic ones. They also use an alternative imputation technique to study unemployed women in a given year. So it's nice that they have a nice model to use it to model after. Another article, comparing apples with oranges, revisiting the gender wage gap in an international perspective by Plasman and Sissoko. Plasman will be a recurring author in my proposal, as he's from the University of Brussels in Belgium, focusing on gender wage economics, so very, very important to what I'm talking about, specific to Belgium as well. They talk about how the private sector gender wage gaps in Europe and specifically Belgium, with they have 4 other European countries such as Spain and Italy and France, amongst the other one. They talk about how wage structure, the distribution of measured characteristics, occupational segregation, and indirect discrimination all explain the pattern of international differences. These would be between those 5 countries in Europe, which will be important to look at as we can, in some way, compare that back to the United States and see what intrinsically is different between these countries to show their gender gap or their lack of a gender wage gap. The fourth reference is Wage Differentials in Belgium, the Role of Worker and Employer Characteristics by Plasman once again. They look at the role of worker and employer characteristics in the determination of wages in the Belgian private sector between 1995 and 2002. I appreciate their time frame, as I will be able to expand on this through the year 2015 due to my country study diary, which should prove to be very useful in looking at more modern data. I'll say that decreasing returns on education, a large and stable gender wage gap, an increasing wage penalty for those employed on a fixed-term contract, and small and slightly declining regional wage differentials are all things that arise from this data set. The last reference, Women's Career Choices, Social Norms, and Childcare Policies by Baragozzi and Roeder. explores gender-specific patterns of career and childcare choices through endogenous social norms. We know that childcare and parental leave is not a very big. It's a very big issue in the United States, but the policy behind it has not had that great of a push throughout history. Whereas in Belgium, it is the complete opposite. Their parental leave is much higher. So to gather data from this article should prove very useful in looking at kind of feminist economics, in that the role of stuff. And with this reference, we look at Women's Career Choices, Social Norms, and Childcare Policies by Baragozzi, Kramer, and Roeder, which explores gender-specific patterns of career and childcare choices through endogenous social norms. We know that in the United States, there is not a set parental leave program or policy, whereas there is in Belgium, as well as almost every other country on Earth. So seeing these two differences could also show a difference in their gender wage gap and their valuation of gender equality. And they also state that childcare subsidies and women quotas can be effective tools to mitigate or eliminate the externality imposed on other couples. The changes I have made in this presentation have been the addition of two sources, one focusing on Belgium specifically by Plasman, and then the last article by Baragozzi, how quotas may have an impact on the gender wage gap. There's lots of room for further research within this topic, as I could expand it to more OECD countries, which have been shown throughout the articles. None of them focused wholly on the United States and Belgium, but a lot of them had 4 or 5 or even 13, like the very first reference about countries where the data would be a lot more prevalent and more countries would equal more correlations. And there's a lot of room for future research in this topic, we could expand it to a broader set of OECD countries, which will then have a little bit more weight, looking at not only Belgium, but adding France and the UK and some Eastern Asian countries as well. And then also looking into the importance of education, not only tertiary education, but what are they studying? As we've seen in the United States, tertiary education rates are relatively similar, but what kind of education are they getting? What are they studying? Are they studying nursing or business? What are the two sexes studying? And maybe that could show a deeper understanding of this gender wage gap. Thank you.